All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Wednesday, March 18th of 2026. Looking ahead here, we had 25 matches of tennis get underway earlier this morning. Good luck to all of you playing some tennis. For the rest of the evening, we have a 2-game college basketball slate. We have an 8-game NBA slate, and then a 6-game NHL slate with golf teeing off early tomorrow morning for both PGA and LIV. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is the show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions, get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there's a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim teams. Can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. You can tune in any one of those days to get your questions answered. All right. With that said, wanted to show something off before we jump into questions. So if you go over to college basketball, we talked about this yesterday. We now have projections and ownership for college basketball. Well, update today, we now have all of the detailed stats to go along with it. So we have all of the percentiles, the minutes, and then the detailed stats related to the scoring system. So twos, threes, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, turnovers are all in here as well. So it should look very familiar to what you would see on a normal NBA slate with all of the same data. So I believe that was the last kind of missing piece to full-fledged support for college basketball. You can see the sliders, rules, filters, etc. One thing somebody called out that I did want to mention is that sometimes abbreviations can be different for college basketball. So like if I click PVAM and I click filter, none of the players show up. The workaround for that in the meantime is to go to the team column, right click on team, and then you can filter them this way if you want to go team by team. So if the filters in the game menu are not working for you, use the right-clicking the team option, which is the second way of doing that, and then one of those two options will definitely work for filtering. So just wanted to call a couple things out with regards to our continued release of support for college basketball here ahead of the tournament starting tomorrow. So couple quick notes there. We do have one other housekeeping item, which is our first question of the day. Question says, will SaberSim be running the Birdie Battle again this golf season? So my understanding is yes, that we will be. We have not finalized everything in terms of the schedule and prizes and some of those other things that need to kind of get firmed up before we start promoting it. But my understanding is yes, we will have the Birdie Battle. And then once we do, we will be sure to communicate via in-app messaging, via email, via Discord, and let everyone know, hey, you know, the Birdie Battle is live. Make sure you sign up and go from there. But we do a pretty good job of making sure that nobody misses it. So that is coming, but glad to see the excitement for the Birdie Battle returning. All right, gonna jump into some more kind of app type questions here. First question, this came in at the end of yesterday's show. I just missed it, so I apologize. But the question was, can you explain how to use a core? Okay, so if I wanted to use a core group of players, right? And then, you know what, this actually goes with the next question. I'm gonna lump these two together. So first one, how to use a core, and then I'm going to couple this with the second question. How you doing today? Could you show how you would approach today's NBA main slate and show if you make any adjustments to projections or exposures? Thanks. Okay, so I'm gonna do a demo as if I wanted to use a core for NBA. That's what I'm gonna do here. So I'm going to go over to the NBA main slate. I'm going to go to a new build. Okay, now if you want to use a core, I think there's a couple different ways to do this. My personal favorite way to do this is with a rule. I would go to the rules. I would go to add new rule. I would go to group manual, used at least X. Let's say your core is a group of 3 players. Okay, I click edit players. And let's say your core is the highest projected player, the highest owned player, and another high value player will go with a salary relief option. Sheed appears to be the lowest salary option here at 3,500. So we're going to choose Sheed here, right? So high value, high projection, good value, very strong salary relief. This is going to be our core, right? We're going to pay up for Jokic. We're going to pay down for Sheed. And then we're going to take a really strong play in Dosunmu based on points per dollar. Okay, I click Save Group. I now have the 3 players here. And then I would click Save. So when I build my lineups, it is going to use all 3 of those players in every lineup that I build. Another way to do this would be to just change the players' minimum exposures. So I go to Dosunmu, I can set it to 100, and then, I go to Sheed, and then I go to Jokic. So those 3 exposures are basically the same as a rule. And then the last way to do this would just to lock the players. You click this lock icon. It's going to do the same thing. Click the lock icon. Hey, I want to lock Jokic in my lineups. I want to lock Dosunmu, and then I want to lock Sheed, right? So that would be the third option here. One of those 3 ways will definitely suffice in terms of setting up a core for you to use. So you just got to pick whatever one's easier for you. Hey, locking is easier for you. Minimum exposures, if setting the rule, that's the way I would go there. So that's like the first part of the question with regards to using a core. Now we're going to focus on this second part as far as basically a slate demo for the NBA slate today, adjusting projections and exposures. So if you're going to adjust projections, I would do that before running the build, right? You obviously have some opinion on whether you think a player is going to do better or do worse, right? That's effectively why you are adjusting the projection. Hey, I think that Kawhi Leonard is going to play less minutes because the Clippers had a game yesterday and they are on the second leg of a back-to-back, and he is old, right? I'm making this up. I don't know if Clippers played yesterday, but that could be a reason, right? That could be something that you determine that causes you to lower the projection. Hey, I think Kawhi is going to play less. Okay, I come in, and it depends how granular you want to get with this. So his fantasy points per minute are 1.52, right? So you're like, okay, if you want to be very, mathematical about it, where are his minutes? Okay, so his minutes are here. So I'm going to say, hey, I think he's going to play, 1 less minute. Okay, so then what that means is that his fantasy points should come down 1.52. So then I come in here and I do 47.34 minus 1.52, right? And then I would set his projection to 45.82. You could do it differently, right? Hey, I think he's going to play 30 minutes. He's projected for 31.23. I think he's going to play 30. Okay, then what I would do is I would take 30 and then I would multiply it by his fantasy points per minute. That's 45.6. Okay, then I would put 45.6. If I just wanted to drop him, right? Okay, I would lower him 1 to 2 fantasy points. Hey, 46.34. That's going to bring his value down, and it's going to make it so he gets in less lineups, right? There's a number of reasons are a number of ways to go about this. I just kind of showcased a few using minutes, fantasy points per minute, a calculator, a little bit of a less mathematical approach as well. But for those type of situations, right, you think a player is going to play less or you think a player is going to play better, right? Hey, let's see. OKC is a 16-point favorite on Brooklyn. You know, I think that, you know, SGA is going to, you know, kind of take the game off and let others run the court, right? And I think I want to lower him too. Whatever reasoning, right? All of those kind of predictions, all of those kind of takes or insights, put those in before the build runs, right? It is better to do that. As far as projections go, now as far as exposures go, okay, what I would do is if there are players you know you want exposure to, set those before the build as well, okay? So as far as like risk management goes, you kind of don't know which pieces you're going to be the most exposed to until after the build. So as far as like taming your risk, I think that part of it is better to do after building the lineups, which is more so setting max exposures. You might be setting a couple minimum exposures if you have too much negative leverage on a player, but that's like something you're going to run into a little less often. The majority of the time it's going to be like, hey, I have a lot of exposure to these players and I kind of want to bring it down, right? You don't know who that is, so it's better to wait for those until after the build. But if there's players you know you want, like we were talking about earlier with the core, right? Hey, I know I want to play Dosunmu. I think he's in a really good spot, and I never want to be under the field on him, right? If you don't know where to start in terms of setting exposures, I think you can do that by referring to the player's ownership, right? Hey, he's 56% owned. I'm going to set my minimum exposure to 55%. That way I am never less than the field on him. I want to either be over or be equal at least here, right? So I think using ownership to set minimum exposures in those cases can be useful. So here I think this is a fine thing to do before the build, right? So we haven't even gotten into the post build, but we're still talking about, you know, projections, exposures, when it's good to use one or the other. Looks like there's a second part here. We're going to bring this in as we continue to walk through this slate demo. Okay, follow-up. Do you make any adjustments with your builds? Sometimes, you know, it's going to depend. It usually comes into like the post build, right? Hey, am I seeing the things that I want? Am I comfortable with the leverages and the exposures that I'm getting? I think it's okay to make adjustments. You know, hey, I don't want to play, you know, this low min salary lineups, right? I would rather play higher. Okay, I'm going to raise my minimum to 49,000, right? Hey, I don't like to play more than 4 players from one team, right? Okay, I want to come in and I want to set, these are like some general rules that people will use, right? I want to use no more than 4 per team. So, you know, these are like very safe things to do. Hey, I want to have a minimum filter for projection, and I'm going to write one from scratch. And I don't want to even consider players whose projection is less than 15. So I'm going to write a filter here that says show players with projection greater than 15, right? These are all really safe things to do. It looks like you're maybe like looking for some suggestions about things that you can do before the build. I think raising minimum salary a little bit. I think limiting players from one team to a high number, not a super aggressive number here, but 4, and even setting a small projection filter are all okay things to do if you're looking for some suggestions there. And then if we scroll down right to like where that point is, see like all these players, you know, getting like a little bit of ownership, right? If you probably added all of this up, it might add up to, I don't know, 2%. But, I mean, that is, 2% that maybe you didn't want to play, you'd rather have 0% of, right? So I think it's okay to set some of these filters and rules to kind of protect yourself when, you're looking at 150 lineups or more. It does get hard to be granular with every micro decision in your lineups. And sometimes, putting in these safeguards can help you. So just some things to consider there. But all right, so we made some projection adjustments. We've set at least one minimum exposure. We've put on some kind of safeguard kind of filters and settings here. And now we are ready to run the build. All right, so we're going to run these lineups. All right, we're going to continue with the slate demo, but I think it's a good opportunity to move on to this next question because we're getting into the post build where this makes sense to discuss. This next question says, I understand the portfolio diversifier is trying to cover different ways the slate can play out. How does it decide which ones to actually lean into more versus just having some exposure? Okay, so I'm not sure this is the description I would give the portfolio diversifier. I think that as far as ways the slate can play out, we have to make a distinction here between building lineups and simming lineups, okay? So, and it can get a little bit tricky there. The way I like to think about it is, how this lineup pane is like popped out? I kind of like to think about this as a divider, okay? This half of the screen and that half of the screen, the left side here where our table is and our exposures and our players, and then the right side are kind of different, right? The left side has the build lineups button. The right side has the run contest sim button, okay? When we build lineups, when we click that build button, we are sampling the games and we are taking a certain number of sims from each game on the slate at random. We are playing out those sims, and then we are putting that lineup into the pool. The lineups go one at a time into the pool until this pool section is complete, right? We requested 500 lineups here. We got 503. It could be a little bit above or below. That's okay. But here, right, we are using the left side of the screen, I'm going to call it, okay? Building lineups. This part decides what ways the slate can play out and the lineups that come from those scenarios, right? Because we are effectively simulating the slate and building a lineup. And then we put it into the pool. And then we simulate the slate again. We build a lineup, we put it into the pool, right? So all the different ways the slate can play out happened in the building lineup process. Now the lineups come into the pool. And the lineups get graded either by your contest sim ROI or by your Saber score, okay? Saber score and the ROIs are both using a contest sim. The run contest sim option on Ultimate uses the exact contests that you're playing. The Saber score option is an ROI. So when I see the average Saber score 112.73, this is 112.73% ROI. The difference here is that the Saber score is a general simplified contest and it doesn't reflect any particular contest in the lobby. It's like, hey, this is the most common payout structure, this is the most common size contest, and this is what we're going to use to represent the Saber score, okay? So it is still a contest sim in that regard, but it's not using exact entrance, exact payout structures, exact strength of the field as far as like the different field lineups and things go, but it is better than old SaberScore. So it definitely ranks, it back tested better than the old SaberScore formula did, which is why we introduced it. Okay. Now getting to the portfolio diversifier. Okay. So we're moving away from building lineups and we are moving to the right side of the screen. Now this is the portfolio diversifier. Now the part here about, which ones does it actually lean into? This decision about which lineups to choose, which exposures to give, this part comes from that contest sim aspect. So the building comes from the slate simulations. The lineups that get chosen come from the contest simming aspect. Hey, how are your lineups performing when we put them up against lineups that we think the rest of the users in your contest are going to play? That is how the portfolio diversifier decides which lineups to actually give you. And it prioritizes whatever your metric is, right? So here we're using portfolio, which uses SaberScore. So portfolio still prioritizes SaberScore. You can see that our first lineup is the highest SaberScore lineup. And then all of these are positive. All of these are graded particularly high, even though they're not in order, right? Notice lineup 5 SaberScore is higher than lineups 3 and 4. Well, the portfolio diversifier determined that it is better that lineup 3 complements lineups 2 and lineups 1 better than lineup 5 does, even though 5 has a higher raw SaberScore, right? This is the difference between sorting uniques 1 versus sorting portfolio, is that portfolio is making more decisions based on how the lineups play together rather than just giving you highest SaberScore to lowest SaberScore. So as far as how it figures it out, which ones to lean into, it's all about how they perform against the other lineups that they are facing. All right. Good stuff so far. So we are moving into like post-build analysis here. So some things that I would do: come into my table, sort by exposure. Now I got to start comparing. Now I got to start analyzing this, kind of trying to make those post-build risk management decisions. This is the second part, going back to the other question here about adjusting any exposures or things like that, right? So here I got to figure out, hey, am I comfortable with the exposures that I'm getting, and do I want to take these or do I want to alter them, right? Hey, we set the 55% minimum to Dosunmu, and he's in 100% of my lineups. Am I comfortable with that? Well, I said I liked him, so yeah, I actually am okay with this stand. Well, I didn't really have an opinion about Daniel Gafford, and now he's the second highest exposed, second highest leverage. Am I okay with this? Let's say I'm not, right? Hey, his pool percentage is actually pretty close to his ownership. I don't know if I really want this much of him. He kind of wasn't on my radar. Well, maybe I lower him to something closer to 2x his ownership or 1.5x his ownership, right? Where I'm not so heavily exposed. And maybe I put this at 50%, right? 50% is still like a lot of leverage. I click apply. The portfolio diversifier says, hey, we now have to meet this 50% exposure request while still picking and selecting the best lineups that fit together. And then it thinks it re-chooses the lineups. And now I have the 50% Gafford is now being met, right? So I can see his leverage came down quite a bit there, and maybe I'm happier with that now, right? I didn't know I was going to get so much of him before building, so I didn't think to, set that up prior. So I think there's a reason to do exposures before. I think there's a reason to do exposures after. It's not really one or the other. It's not, and it's okay to do it at whatever point you need to. So that would basically be how I would just kind of touch up and kind of finish up my lineups here before saving them, downloading them, and then uploading them to my contests. All right. Looking around here, think we are all caught up in YouTube and Discord. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern for our next show. So until then, everybody, take care.